hello everybody. It's wonderful to be here at what is day 3 and getting towards the end of World Governance Summit. Certainly personally, I know this has been incredibly valuable once again. I think we're more than a decade into this now, and it's always fantastic. I'm absolutely delighted to be part of this next 20-minute discussion. For over 2 decades, I've had the privilege of covering this region, the past decade of which, of course, has been from CNN's regional headquarters in Abu Dhabi in the UAE. And as you will all know, reporting on the Middle East often means witnessing history in the making, and unfortunately, that has often meant, over the years, covering conflict and destruction, like the heartbreaking devastation of Mosul's heritage sites. And it was a stark reminder of the blatant disregard for human civilization and the urgent need to protect our shared history, that which we witnessed there in Mosul. Journalism, though, isn't just about reporting loss. It is about telling stories of resilience and revival. And one of UNESCO's most ambitious projects ever, reviving the spirit of Mosul, led by key partners like the UAE, is a project that I've had the absolute privilege to report on over the past 7 years. It isn't just a story of recovery, it is a blueprint for restoration. It's a testament to what's possible when the world unites to protect and rebuild. I would like to discuss how it is a good example of how multilateralism can work in what is a very disrupted era, it has to be said. Today we have got the privilege of speaking to 2 leading figures in this remarkable tale. His Excellency Sheikh Salem bin Khalid Qassimi is the UAE's Minister of Culture. You lead, of course, the country's evolving, robust cultural and creative ecosystem. You also spearhead multilateral engagements with global and regional partners to enhance cultural cooperation. And Your Excellency Audrey, Azoulay, is the Director General, of course, of UNESCO, a job that you've held for 7 years now. Previously served as the French Minister of Culture. Your work has very specifically focused on protection of endangered heritage, and very specifically, and particularly here in the Middle East, reviving the spirit of Mosul was really your baby. I mean, I think it has to be said, in partnership with the UAE. Let's talk about Mosul and what you were able to achieve. Can you just take us through the journey of the past 7 years, Audrey?
With pleasure. Thank you very much, Becky, and thank you for having me here. It's a pleasure to be back at the World Government Summit and in the UAE. It was, if you remember, I think we were all, and particularly you covering the region, we all have in mind the images of the war against culture, against women, against memory, the war that was led by ISIS, that had put its black flag from Mosul. And Mosul in history, and this region, Iraq, Mesopotamia, was, on the contrary, a place where many things of our modern civilization was born. The idea of a city, the notion of a pluralist society. Mosul means the link in Arabic, because there were different communities living there. And this is what the war of Daesh was against, the war of ISIS was against. So I felt that there was a responsibility also of the international community to support Mosul recover its identity, to renew, to have this identity back after these horrible years. And so the journey actually started also here at the World Government Summit, because I remember in 2018, it was the very first weeks of my mandate as UNESCO Director General. I was just back from a conference on Iraq, where the rebuilding of the cultural heritage or of the education was not present. And I thought, this is my job. This is what multilateralism should be about, and UNESCO specifically, as we have this mandate on culture, education, science. And I came straight from this conference to the UAE, where I had the privilege of meeting the then Crown Prince, His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed, to whom I presented this idea, and I got the support for the idea immediately. And this is how it started.
And that was 7 years ago. The power of convening, the power of partnership, something that is at the heart of what is going on in the UAE. And the power for partnerships on policies that really fit the UAE's agenda. Mosul really sort of reflects the spirit of the UAE. Can you just talk about the importance of the partnership?
Absolutely, Becky. I mean, Mosul, as Her Excellency mentioned, is the linking point of North, East, South, and West. It's a community that's been there for thousands of years, a city that's revived itself for thousands of years with intercultural dialogue, interfaith dialogue. It's a true city that has a shared values of coexistence, tolerance, and peace. Until it was affected by extremist groups. Of course, these very important values are the values of the UAE. They're the values of our late father, Sheikh Zayed bin Sultan Al Nahyan, in which the UAE's efforts towards this project was not only about the physical structures, but was more about reviving the multicultural and the multi-faith identity of this city. With the help of UNESCO, we were able to do that. We see today the city come back to life, and actually the name of the project, Reviving the Spirit of Mosul, we see the spirit of Mosul come back. And maybe Madam DG can talk a bit about it since...
Well, you're just back, of course.
Yeah.
And tell us, I mean, what is the spirit of Mosul today? None of this, by the way, has been without challenges. And I'm sorry that we haven't actually got some images up
They're spectacular.
today. Do watch my show tonight between 6 and 8, because we're going to rerun this panel, or parts of this panel, and we've got a lot of images which are absolutely spectacular. And I know your social platforms have been reflecting some of those as well. So you're just back. Tell us.
Well, the first thing which is striking is the sound. Because I remember being there early in the project, you couldn't hear any sound in the old city. It was 80% destroyed. Rubbles, no children in the street, no women in the street. And now the project is completed, nearly completed. There's just one more thing to do. So the more iconic monuments are here, and the religious one, the Al Nouri Mosque, the minaret Al Adba, but also churches, thanks to the UAE, because this is the spirit of this diversity. 2 beautiful churches, and you can hear the sound of the bells that give the hour that the Moslawi people knew, and you can also discuss with the people that are back in the old city.
And you and I have talked about this before, the involvement of the local community in this project, which has been absolutely key. We talked over the years about sort of capacity and capacity building, who would be involved, how the look and feel of the entire project would be, whether the minaret would be slightly tilted on the mosque or not. These are conversations that you had with the community. How important has that been?
It's absolutely key, and it's also part of the legacy, I think, of the project. The fact that we worked with the people of Mosul, first to train them, to train engineers, architects, reviving also of the craftsmanship, to use the traditional techniques, but also to work with the NGOs, to work with the communities living there, to ask them what they wanted. For instance, as you mentioned, for the minaret Al Adba, which had been destroyed, there was this question: do we rebuild it as new, as brand new, or tilted as it was before being destroyed? And this is the choice that they made, and so this is what we have done with them. So this is really their project. They were involved at every step, and even once it will be completed, the people will have this legacy in terms of training, in terms of recovering their traditional home, the traditional techniques, the alabaster, the marble, the white marble of Mosul. All this is very important, and it gives hopes.
This is a very headline-grabbing project. Minister, can we talk about how this might provide a blueprint for other restoration projects, and the sort of commitment that the UAE has under your sort of file to work through the learnings from this and what happens next? Because there has been money spent on other projects already, of course, but like I say, this has been very much the sort of headline project.
Absolutely. I mean, Becky, this is not new for the UAE. There's been a lot of restoration projects that we've been working on throughout the years. You know, in Jerusalem between 2002 and 2004, the reconstruction or the renovation of 2 mosques and a church, several projects in Africa as well that are currently undergoing restoration and recovery. So again, but at the end of the day, those physical structures are needed to be there. They need to be constructed, but it's all about the people. With this project, during my time as a UAE permanent delegate in Paris, we had the KPI of training 1,500 Moslawis into this project. And thanks to the efforts of UNESCO, we exceeded that number to over 3,000. Over 100 professionals have been trained into restoration and reconstruction. Now those people could handle their jobs themselves. So it's again about the people, the capacity building efforts of the people, and a bit maybe on the historical context of why those 3 structures in Mosul. Al-Nouri Mosque and its celebrated leaning Hadba minaret was built in the second half of the 12th century. The 2 churches that followed that, Al-Tahara Church was built in 1859, and As-Sa'a Church was founded in 1870 by the first pontifical mission sent to Mesopotamia. So these are really historic sites that talk about intercultural dialogue.
And also, there was we used this history to regive the identity, the true identity of the city, but also the education. We had at the same time renovation of classrooms, training of teachers. So you have the culture and education together with the training and the diversity of communities.
So we're talking about what can be achieved when the world gets together. When organizations like UNESCO, countries like the UAE, and others get together and say we will unite for the benefit of humanity through the prism of culture and heritage. We live in really trying times at present. We talked yesterday in a panel about the inflection point that is the world of international development and aid at present. These are trying times. You've, Minister, had the benefit of getting a seat at the table in Paris as a permanent delegate to UNESCO for quite a period of time. You've seen this project very specifically come to life and be seen through. I know that this is a good example of how multiculturalism works. I also know that these are, as I say, very trying times for multiculturalism as an effort. People are unsubscribing from multiculturalism and the sort of the world that we have known for some time. Question is, I don't think it's clear what people are asking us to subscribe to as a system at this point. So given that we sit in this slightly odd era at present, Audrey, Minister, just talk us through the importance of how this system, this process has worked and why it is that it should survive like this going forward.
Please.
So it's a very important question because we know now there are a lot of uncertainty, a lot of questions, some of them very legitimate, about how multilateralism works. What are these institutions that were born just after World War II, are they still relevant?
Are they fit for purpose?
Yeah, do they still produce something with added value for the international community? And this is one answer. This is one, I think, very credible, strong answer. If I take the example of UNESCO, you have 194 member states. You have the credibility of the expertise of the organization in terms of education standards, in terms of cultural heritage. And this allows us, as an institution from the UN system, to put on the table a project and to bring together, so that countries from all over the world, for this, Revive the Spirit of Mosul project. The main and first sponsor was the UAE. The second main, very big sponsor was the European Union. But you also had 13 countries from all over the world, including in Asia or Canada or whatever, supporting this. And this would not be possible without the convening power of institutions like us and the expertise.
And Minister, I talk about the disruption. Layer on top of that the fact that we are living in an age of AI, young people increasingly online, virtual meta-universes at present, in this disrupted world, as we talk about how the organization and the project very specifically can be a blueprint for others. How do we ensure that this new generation cares about these heritage sites, cares about, protecting them, makes them attractive as an idea for survival and revival?
Beck, if I can just answer the question previously on multilateralism. We're living in a very polarized world at the moment, and I still have faith in multilateralism because I was in this project working in it specifically. It all stems from action. Once there was a call from UNESCO in the Revive the Spirit of Mosul initiative, the UAE was the first funder, the UAE was the most insignificant funder. And always within multilateralism, there's a ripple effect. So once the UAE committed to this, we saw a ripple effect of the EU and the other 13 countries that joined this initiative. So I have faith in multilateralism, but it needs to be more action and less talk. When it comes to AI and engaging with the youth, I think the most interesting thing, again, is the capacity building, training the youth to have ownership of those important sites.
It's an opportunity, isn't
it? Absolutely. And a very interesting point that we need to discuss here is during the restoration of Al-Nouri Mosque, there was a new discovery of the ablution rooms that was under the mosque. And I can only picture what AI can do in the future within the reconstruction of and restoration of sites, because archaeologists themselves are finding sites. So the integration of AI with that, I think, would be amazing for the future generation and future archaeologists.
We've run out of time. Mabruk.
Thank you.
To you, Audrey, and to you, Minister. It's amazing. I've been thoroughly engaged in what you guys have been doing. And as a team at CNN, we've provided a platform for you to ensure that this story is out there, because it's a terrific one. Thank you very much indeed
for
joining us today.
Merci.
Thank you.
Merci beaucoup.